The shadow of Dominion. The massive Dominion warship, Eternal Supremacy, slipped silently out of hyperspace, its arrival masked by the light of the distant yellow star. The ship was a masterpiece of destruction, nearly a kilometer long, bristling with weaponry that could reduce planets to ash. It hovered at the edge of an unassuming solar system, its sensors locking onto a planet that the Galactic Dominion had only recently taken notice of Earth. Grand Admiral Cale Vaughn stood tall at the command center, his face carved from years of discipline and conquest. Behind him, the bridge hummed with activity as officers monitored the planet below. A holographic image of Earth rotated in the center of the room, its blue oceans and green continents reflecting an unsettling tranquility. "Report," Cale commanded, his voice as sharp as the blade he wore at his side. "Scans confirm a Type 0 civilization," Lieutenant Dren responded, his fingers flying over the glowing console. "Population, 8 billion, no hyperspace technology, no energy shields, primitive combustion-based engines dominate their transport systems. Weaponry, limited to ballistic projectiles and fission-based explosives." Cale raised an eyebrow. Fission explosives were ancient by Dominion standards, relics of a bygone era. Interesting. And their communication capabilities? "Surprisingly advanced for their level, Admiral," said Communications Officer Lyra. "They've built an extensive network of interconnected data systems. Their information infrastructure spans nearly every corner of the planet." Cale's lips curled into a faint smirk. A networked species meant easier psychological manipulation. Dominion protocols had proven time and again that fear was the most efficient tool of conquest. "Transmit the Declaration of Dominion," he ordered. "Inform them that their world is now under our jurisdiction. They are to comply with all directives or face immediate subjugation." Humanity's quiet response. On Earth, the transmission was received simultaneously across thousands of channels, television broadcasts, radio waves, and even encrypted military networks. The message was delivered in flawless English, Spanish, Mandarin, and dozens of other human languages. "Attention, inhabitants of the third planet of this star system. You are now subjects of the Galactic Dominion. We bring you the promise of order, prosperity, and advancement. Resistance is futile. Surrender and accept our guidance, or face annihilation. You have 24 hours to comply." In underground bunkers and fortified command centers, humanity's leaders listened to the broadcast in grim silence. For decades, intelligence agencies and military experts had theorized about the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. They had prepared protocols, devised strategies, and built secret technologies in the shadows. Now, those preparations were being put to the ultimate test. At No-Ray Day, a veteran general named Abigail Royce leaned over a digital map displaying the location of the alien vessel. "How far are they from our orbit?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Approximately 1.2 million kilometers, General," replied a young officer. "Far enough to avoid immediate detection by our telescopes, but close enough to launch a strike if they choose to." Royce's eyes narrowed. "And what do we know about their capabilities?" "Limited," the officer admitted, "but judging by the size of their ship and the energy readings, they're far beyond anything we've ever encountered." Royce straightened, her expression hardening. "Then we use what we have. Activate the contingency." The room fell silent. The contingency plan had been developed in secret, buried under layers of classified operations. It was humanity's answer to a threat no one had truly believed would come. The first encounter. Back aboard the Eternal Supremacy, Grand Admiral Cale Vaughn reviewed Earth's lack of response with mild amusement. In his 3 decades of service, he had led the subjugation of 37 worlds. Every one of them had folded before the might of the Dominion. He saw no reason for Earth to be any different. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Dren, his voice hesitant, "we're receiving a reply." Cale's eyebrow arched. "Put it through." The response was concise, transmitted in perfect Dominion standard. "We have received your message. Your presence is noted. We advise you to leave immediately. This is your only warning." For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then, a wave of chuckles rippled through the crew. Dren turned to Kale, confusion etched on his young face. "A bluff, surely." Kale allowed himself a small chuckle. A species at their level does not bluff. They are deluded, clinging to the belief that their courage can compensate for their inadequacies. Let us demonstrate the futility of resistance. Deploy 3 corvettes into orbit. Begin Phase 1. Within minutes, 3 smaller Dominion warships, the Vanguard, Resolute, and Ironclad, broke formation and accelerated toward Earth. Each one was equipped with weapons capable of reducing entire cities to rubble. Their mission was simple: to shatter Earth's defenses and bring its leaders to their knees. As the corvettes approached Earth, their sensors began detecting an unusual pattern of debris in orbit: abandoned satellites, disused space stations, and countless fragments of metal and machinery. "An untidy species," remarked one of the corvette captains, his tone dismissive. "Clear a path." The ship's targeting systems locked onto the debris field, preparing to incinerate it with precision lasers. But before they could fire, the debris came alive. Hundreds of objects erupted into motion, propelled by hidden thrusters. The Dominion's sophisticated scanners identified them too late: nuclear devices and kinetic payloads disguised as harmless junk. Humanity strikes back. The debris field detonated in a series of violent, blinding flashes. Electromagnetic pulses surged through the corvette's shields, disabling their systems in seconds. Engines sputtered, lights flickered, and the once mighty warships drifted helplessly in orbit. But Earth wasn't finished. From hidden launch sites scattered across the planet, waves of missiles streaked upward. Mid-flight, they fragmented into hundreds of small tungsten rods, dense, simple projectiles designed to strike at hypersonic speeds. The rods tore through the disabled corvettes, piercing their armor like paper. Explosions rippled through the ships as their fuel cells ignited. Within moments, the Vanguard, Resolute, and Ironclad were reduced to flaming wreckage. Back on the Eternal Supremacy, Kel Vaughn watched in stunned silence as his fleet's debris rained down toward Earth's atmosphere. His officers were frozen, their confidence shattered. "Admiral," said Dren, his voice shaking. They used kinetic weapons, primitive but devastating." Kale clenched his fists. This was no ordinary species. Humanity had just demonstrated something that no Dominion world had ever dared to: defiance. "Prepare a full report," Kale growled, his voice heavy with fury. "We underestimated them. This is not over." Humanity's unveiling. The smoldering remnants of the Dominion's 3 corvettes drifted through Earth's orbit, casting long shadows across the planet's surface below. On the Eternal Supremacy, Grand Admiral Kel Vaughn stood rigid, his gaze locked on the holographic display of the unfolding disaster. The loss of 3 warships to what appeared to be a technologically inferior species was unprecedented in the Dominion's history. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dren began cautiously, his voice barely above a whisper, "should we prepare another wave? Perhaps a larger strike force?" Kel cut him off with a sharp gesture. "No, this is no longer a simple demonstration of force. This is an enigma." Kel's mind raced. Earth's response had been too calculated, too precise. The electromagnetic pulse traps, the fragmentation projectiles. It was clear these tactics had been meticulously prepared. A species at their supposed level of development should not have been capable of such coordination, much less the foresight to anticipate Dominion strategies. "Contact Dominion Command," Kale ordered, his voice low and deliberate. "Inform them of our losses and request reinforcements. Until then, we hold our position. We need to understand what we are dealing with." Earth reveals its secrets. Far below, in a hardened subterranean bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Abigail Royce watched the orbital wreckage with grim satisfaction. Around her, the control room was alive with activity. Technicians and analysts reviewed data feeds from satellites, missile systems, and global communications networks. "Status report," Royce demanded, her voice cutting through the noise. A young analyst looked up from his console, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Our systems performed flawlessly, General. The EMP bursts disabled all 3 ships as planned. The tungsten rods achieved an 87% impact rate. Remaining debris poses minimal risk to civilian populations." "Casualties?" "None, ma'am," the analyst replied. "The strikes were confined to orbit. Ground-based systems remain on standby." Royce allowed herself a rare smile. "Good. Begin Phase 2 preparations, and ensure the media blackout holds. The public can't know the full extent of what we've done. Not yet." Across the globe, similar scenes played out in military installations hidden in mountains, beneath oceans, and even deep within Arctic ice. Humanity's true capabilities have been hidden for decades, developed in secret under the guise of peace treaties and disarmament agreements. The nations of Earth had learned long ago that cooperation in the face of an external threat was not just wise, it was essential. Phase 2 was a testament to that unity. Hidden production facilities began ramping up operations, churning out advanced weaponry that had never been seen before. Railguns capable of firing projectiles at Mach 20, stealth drones with adaptive camouflage, and even experimental plasma-based weaponry. All of it was now coming online. But humanity's most formidable asset wasn't its technology, it was its people. The thinkers and the builders. In a nondescript office building in Geneva, a team of engineers and scientists worked furiously to reverse engineer the remnants of Dominion technology retrieved from the wreckage of the destroyed corvettes. Among them was Dr. Elena Torvik, a physicist who had dedicated her life to understanding theoretical propulsion systems. "Look at this," Elena said, pointing to a holographic projection of a salvaged Dominion drive core. "This isn't a traditional fusion reactor, it's a quantum flux stabilizer. If we can replicate this, we could achieve faster-than-light travel without the need for hyperspace lanes." Across the room, another scientist, Dr. Kamal Rahim, was poring over schematics of a Dominion weapon. "Their plasma rifles are leagues ahead of anything we've ever built. But here's the kicker, they're modular. We can adapt them to our platforms." Human ingenuity was in overdrive. The Dominion had unwittingly handed Earth the keys to its own downfall. Every piece of technology that could be salvaged was being studied, replicated, and improved upon. Dominion doubts. On the eternal supremacy, the atmosphere on the bridge had shifted from arrogance to unease. Cale Vaughn stood alone at the observation deck, staring out at the distant blue orb of Earth. He could feel the eyes of his crew on him, their unspoken questions hanging heavy in the air. "Admiral," Lieutenant Dren ventured hesitantly, "what do you think their next move will be?" Cale turned slowly, his face betraying nothing. "That is the question, isn't it? They have already proven more resourceful than we anticipated. If they are bold enough to strike first, they may also be bold enough to take the fight beyond their planet." "Do you believe they could mount an offensive?" Dren asked, his tone skeptical. Cale's silence was answer enough. Moments later, a transmission arrived from Dominion Command. The face of Supreme Chancellor Reth Tavel appeared on the central holodisplay, his golden robes shimmering in the dim light. "Grand Admiral Vaughn," Tavel said, his tone icy, "we have reviewed your report. Reinforcements are en route, including the 6th and 7th fleets. Your orders are to secure the system and eliminate any resistance." Cale nodded, though unease gnawed at him. "Understood, Chancellor, but I must warn you, these humans are not what we expected." "Excuses will not be tolerated," Tavel snapped. "You are a Grand Admiral of the Dominion. Act like one." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Cale to wrestle with a growing sense of foreboding. Humanity's warning. As the Dominion's reinforcements moved closer to Earth, humanity sent its own message. Across Dominion frequencies, a simple broadcast was transmitted, its tone calm but unyielding. To the Galactic Dominion, we offered you a chance to leave. You chose to stay. What happens next is on you. The message was accompanied by video footage of the destroyed corvettes, their fragments drifting helplessly in Earth's orbit. It was a warning, but also a declaration: humanity would not bow. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Dominion faced an enemy it did not fully understand. On Earth, preparations continued, and in the hearts of 8 billion humans burned a collective resolve forged by millennia of struggle. They had faced tyrants before. What was one more? Kel Vaughn watched the footage in silence, his unease now bordering on dread. For the first time in his storied career, he began to wonder if the Dominion had finally met its match. The first counterstrike. The 6th and 7th fleets of the Galactic Dominion surged into Earth's star system like a steel tide, their massive warships gleaming under the light of its yellow sun. Dozens of battleships, cruisers, and carriers formed an imposing armada, dwarfing the earlier exploratory force. Their arrival was meant to inspire fear and awe, a display of the Dominion's unmatched military might. But humanity did not cower. On Earth, in the reinforced subterranean command center known as Sentinel Corps, General Abigail Royce studied the incoming armada on a series of holographic displays. Her brow furrowed, but her voice was steady as she addressed her team. Enemy reinforcements have arrived. Overwhelming numbers, as expected, she said. Status on Project Phantom. A young officer replied, fully operational, General. Stealth modules are active, and the fleet is in position. Royce allowed herself a rare, grim smile. Good. Let's show them what happens when humanity fights back. Humanity's Phantom Fleet. High above Earth, hidden behind the moon's shadow, humanity's Phantom Fleet awaited orders. Unlike the hulking ships of the Dominion, Earth's warships were designed with a ruthless pragmatism. They were smaller, faster, and covered in adaptive camouflage plating that rendered them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Each ship bristled with experimental weaponry, from railguns to energy disruptors reverse-engineered from Dominion technology. At the fleet's helm was Captain Leon Vargas aboard the ESS Resolute, a sleek destroyer outfitted with cutting-edge stealth capabilities. Vargas's voice crackled over the fleet's encrypted comm channel. All ships, this is Captain Vargas. You've trained for this. You know what's at stake. The Dominion thinks they can crush us with sheer numbers. Let's show them what precision and ingenuity can do. Target their forward reconnaissance vessels first. Take out their eyes before they even know we're here. As the Dominion fleet approached Earth, the Phantom Fleet sprang into action. Like wraiths emerging from the shadows, the human warships struck with surgical precision. The chaos of the ambush. The first Dominion ship to fall was the ISS Vanguard, a sleek reconnaissance cruiser positioned ahead of the main fleet. It was vaporized in an instant by a concentrated barrage of kinetic railgun projectiles, each one striking with the force of a meteor. The Dominion crew barely had time to register the attack before their ship disintegrated into a cloud of debris. From the bridge of the Eternal Supremacy, Grand Admiral Kel Vaughn watched the carnage unfold with a mixture of shock and fury. What just happened? He demanded. They're using stealth technology. Lieutenant Dren shouted, his voice laced with panic. We can't see them, Admiral. Our sensors are blind. Kel's fists clenched as another Dominion ship, the ISS Intrepid, erupted into flames. The humans were striking with precision, targeting critical vessels and leaving the rest of the fleet scrambling to respond. Activate pulse scans, Kel ordered. Flood the area with electromagnetic waves. We'll expose their cloaked ships. The bridge crew scrambled to comply, and moments later, a cascade of energy pulses swept through the surrounding space. For a brief moment, flickering silhouettes of the human ships appeared on the Dominion's sensors. There they are, Dren shouted. But just as quickly as they had appeared, the human ships vanished again, their adaptive camouflage compensating for the scans. The Dominion was fighting a ghost. Humanity's ruthless efficiency. Back aboard the ESS Resolute, Captain Vargas smirked as he watched the Dominion's futile attempts to detect his fleet. "They're panicking," he said to his crew. "Keep up the pressure. Target their carriers next. Without their fighters, they're sitting ducks." A squadron of human ships broke off, moving in perfect unison as they zeroed in on the Dominion's largest carriers. These behemoths were the backbone of the Dominion fleet, housing thousands of fighters and bombers. The human ships unleashed a devastating combination of railgun projectiles and plasma disruptor beams. One by one, the carriers erupted in fireballs, their fighter complements destroyed before they could even launch. On Earth, General Royce monitored the battle with a grim sense of pride. "They're outmaneuvering them," she said to her staff. "The Dominion relies on overwhelming firepower and fear, but we're showing them that adaptability wins wars." A desperate countermeasure. Realizing that the battle was spiraling out of control, Admiral Kel Vaughn made a desperate decision. "Deploy the dreadnoughts," he ordered. The dreadnoughts were the Dominion's ultimate weapon, massive, heavily armed warships designed to annihilate entire fleets. Their thick armor and powerful energy shields made them nearly impervious to attack. The arrival of the dreadnoughts momentarily shifted the tide of battle. Their colossal cannons unleashed torrents of plasma fire, forcing the Phantom fleet to break formation and retreat to avoid annihilation. For the first time, Captain Vargas felt the weight of the Dominion's might. "They brought out the big guns," he muttered. "We can't take those down with conventional weapons." "Then it's time to use unconventional ones," came the voice over the comm. It was Dr. Elena Torvik, speaking from a command center on Earth. "Captain Vargas, we've completed the modifications to the energy disruptor cannon. You'll need to get close, but it can disable a dreadnought's shields long enough for the fleet to strike." Vargas' eyes narrowed. "Understood. All ships, cover me. We're going in." The turning point. The ESS Resolute darted through the chaos of battle, weaving between Dominion ships as it closed in on the lead dreadnought, the IS Dominion's Wrath. The massive warship loomed like a titan, its cannons spitting fire in all directions. "Target locked," Vargas said, his voice steady. "Prepare to fire the disruptor cannon." The experimental weapon hummed to life, its energy core glowing with an intense blue light. With a deafening pulse, the cannon fired, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through the void. The Dominion's Wrath shuddered as its shields flickered and failed. For the first time, its vulnerable underbelly was exposed. "Now," Vargas shouted. The Phantom fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, focusing all firepower on the dreadnought. The combined assault tore through its armor, and moments later, the mighty warship exploded in a blinding flash. The retreat. The destruction of the Dominion's Wrath sent shockwaves through the Dominion fleet. One by one, their ships began to retreat, their formations breaking apart as panic spread. On the Eternal Supremacy, Admiral Kel Vaughn watched in stunned silence. His fleet, the pride of the Dominion, was in disarray. For the first time in his career, he issued the one order he had sworn never to give. "Retreat," he said, his voice hollow. "Fall back to the outer rim. We've underestimated them." As the Dominion ships disappeared into hyperspace, cheers erupted aboard the Phantom fleet. But on Earth, General Royce remained sullen. "This isn't over," she said. "They'll be back, stronger and angrier, but so will we." Humanity had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. The rise of humanity's vanguard. The battle may have been won, but Earth was far from celebrating. The remnants of the Galactic Dominion's fleet had fled, leaving behind wreckage and the grim promise of their inevitable return. Humanity had survived the first strike, but survival was not enough. From the Sentinel Corps, General Abigail Royce addressed the United Earth Command in an emergency summit. Leaders from every corner of the globe appeared as holograms around the circular war table, their faces shadowed by the weight of what was to come. "They've retreated, but not for long," Royce began. "The Dominion is licking its wounds, preparing an even greater force. If we wait for them to strike again, we're signing our own death warrant. It's time we take the fight to them." The room buzzed with murmurs of both fear and determination. Royce raised her hand, silencing the noise. "We've proven that we can defeat them. Now, we must prove that we can end this war on our terms." A plan for survival. Royce unveiled the details of Operation Vanguard, an ambitious strategy that would see humanity launch its first counteroffensive against the Galactic Dominion. At its heart was the ESS Valkyrie, humanity's first interstellar battleship equipped with a prototype faster-than-light drive reverse-engineered from Dominion technology. Dr. Elena Torvik, the scientist behind much of Earth's recent technological leaps, explained the plan. The Dominion's strength lies in its centralized command structure. If we can locate and strike their primary fleet headquarters, we can cripple their war machine before it fully mobilizes. "How do we find it?" asked President Kwan of the Pacific Coalition, her holographic form flickering slightly. Torvik's lips curled into a faint smile. "We already have." The room erupted in a mix of gasps and exclamations. Torvik continued, "During the last battle, our forces intercepted fragments of their communication network. With the help of our AI systems, we've traced the origin of their strategic commands to a fortified station near the star Epsilon Eridani. That's where we'll strike." Preparation for war. The announcement ignited a flurry of activity across Earth. In hidden shipyards beneath oceans and mountains, engineers and mechanics worked around the clock to prepare the fleet. Factories hummed with the production of advanced weaponry, armor, and starfighter components. The ESS Valkyrie became a symbol of hope as it neared completion. Built from Earth's strongest alloys and outfitted with a blend of human ingenuity and salvaged Dominion technology, the ship was designed to withstand the Dominion's most devastating assaults. Captain Leon Vargas was handpicked to command the Valkyrie. Despite his success in the earlier battle, he carried the weight of the mission heavily. "We're not just fighting for Earth," he told his crew during their first briefing. "We're fighting for every future humanity might have. If we fail, there won't be anyone left to tell our story." Among the crew was Lieutenant Sarah Connick, a former pilot who had proven her mettle during the orbital battle. Now she stood as the leader of the Valkyrie's fighter squadron, nicknamed the Storm Riders. Connick's fiery determination inspired her pilots. "They think they've seen what we can do," she told them. "They haven't seen anything yet." Into the unknown. As the fleet prepared to depart, humanity watched from below. Across the globe, people gathered in parks, rooftops, and city squares to witness the historic launch of the Valkyrie and its escort fleet. On the day of departure, Captain Vargas addressed the crew and the world. "We leave not as individuals, but as representatives of Earth. We face the impossible and emerge stronger. Now, we bring that strength to the stars. Let the Dominion know that humanity is not prey. We are the storm." With a thunderous roar, the Valkyrie lifted off, its engines blazing as it broke through Earth's atmosphere. The escort fleet followed, their sleek forms disappearing into the void. As the ships activated their faster-than-light drives, streaks of blue energy marked their departure from the solar system. A clash in the stars. The journey to Epsilon Eridani took mere hours, but the tension aboard the Valkyrie made it feel like an eternity. When the fleet arrived, they were met with a daunting sight. The Dominion's headquarters, Citadel Prime, a massive space station surrounded by an armada of warships. The Dominion had not been idle. Grand Admiral Kel Vaughn had anticipated humanity's boldness and fortified the system with a defense fleet far larger than anything seen before. As the Valkyrie and its fleet exited hyperspace, the Dominion forces immediately opened fire. Bright lances of plasma streaked across the void, targeting the human ships. But humanity had prepared for this. Evasive maneuvers, Vargas barked. The Valkyrie weaved through the onslaught, its shields absorbing the brunt of the attacks. Meanwhile, the smaller escort ships deployed their fighters, the Storm Riders among them. Koenig led her squadron into the fray, her voice steady over the comms. "Form up, stay tight. We're going after their shield generators." The fighters darted between the Dominion ships, their agility outmatching the bulky alien vessels. Missiles and railgun rounds streaked through the enemy lines, targeting weak points with devastating accuracy. The turning point. On board the Valkyrie, Dr. Torvik coordinated the deployment of their secret weapon, the Aegis Disruptor, a device capable of temporarily disabling the Dominion's advanced energy shields. "Target Citadel Prime," Torvik instructed. "If we can breach its shields, we can deliver a strike to their command center." The Aegis Disruptor charged, emitting a deep hum that resonated through the ship. With a blinding pulse, the weapon fired, sending a wave of energy cascading toward the station. Citadel Prime's shields flickered, then collapsed. The human fleet wasted no time. The Valkyrie unleashed its full arsenal, focusing fire on the station's central core. The escorts followed suit, their combined firepower tearing through the station's defenses. Sacrifices and triumph. The battle raged for hours, with heavy losses on both sides. Ships burned, and the void was filled with the debris of fallen vessels. But humanity's determination never wavered. In a final, desperate push, Koenig's Storm Riders delivered a payload of kinetic missiles directly into Citadel Prime's core. The station erupted in a massive explosion, the shockwave rippling through the surrounding area and taking many Dominion ships with it. On board the Eternal Supremacy, Admiral Kel Vaughn watched in horror as his command center was destroyed. For the first time, the Dominion's aura of invincibility was shattered. Humanity's new dawn. As the Dominion fleet began to retreat, the human fleet regrouped. Despite their losses, they had achieved the impossible. The destruction of Citadel Prime marked a turning point in the war, sending a message to the galaxy: humanity would not bow. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. But for Captain Vargas, General Royce, and Dr. Torvik, the work was far from over. The Dominion had been dealt a blow, but the war was not yet won. In the darkness of space, the Valkyrie stood as a symbol of Earth's resilience, a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. And as humanity prepared for the battles to come, one truth remained clear: they would fight not just for survival, but for a future worthy of their strength and ingenuity. The war was far from over, but the tides were turning. Humanity's rise had only just begun. The galactic repercussions. The destruction of Citadel Prime sent shockwaves throughout the Galactic Dominion. For over 1,000 years, the Dominion had crushed rebellions and subjugated civilizations without facing serious resistance. Now, an unremarkable planet at the edge of their vast empire had not only survived but retaliated with devastating effect. On the Dominion's capital world, Orion Prime, the High Command convened an emergency session in the Chamber of Eternity, a room built from glimmering obsidian and adorned with the trophies of countless conquests. Seated at the head of the chamber was Overlord Vathar, a towering figure whose cold, crimson eyes radiated both authority and anger. Grand Admiral Kel Vaughn stood at attention, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the chamber's light. His face was pale, his usual confidence replaced by unease. "Explain to me," Vathar growled, his voice like grinding stone, "how a backwater species managed to obliterate one of our most fortified stations." Vaughn cleared his throat. "The humans exploited our doctrines, Overlord. They adapted to our technology faster than any species we've encountered. Their strategies are unconventional, their tactics unpredictable." "Enough!" Vathar's fist slammed into the table, cracking the obsidian surface. "You are telling me that primitives, barely out of their own gravity well, outsmarted the Dominion. Do you think me a fool, Vaughn?" The room fell silent. Vaughn, though shaken, pressed on. "They're not primitives, not anymore. They've weaponized resourcefulness itself. This is not a rebellion, it's a war. Seeds of defiance. The Dominion's defeat at Epsilon Eridani sparked a ripple effect. Other subjugated civilizations, emboldened by humanity's victory, began resisting their overlords. In the marshy depths of Scythax III, the amphibious Scythari Council declared independence. On Braxian V, the enslaved Braxians dismantled their Dominion governors and reclaimed their ancient cities. The rebellion was spreading, and humanity's victory became the symbol of defiance. Messages of solidarity flooded Earth's communication arrays. Alien voices, once unheard and oppressed, now joined the call to arms. On Earth, General Abigail Royce addressed these newfound allies from the Sentinel Corps. Standing before a holographic projection of various alien representatives, she declared, "This is not just humanity's fight. Together, we can end the Dominion's tyranny and build a galaxy where all species thrive." Dr. Torvik, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to adapt the technologies humanity had captured to aid their allies. "We're no longer just defending Earth," she said during a briefing. "We're building an alliance that will rewrite the future." The Dominion strikes back. The Dominion was not idle. Overlord Vathar issued a decree across his empire. Humanity was to be eradicated at all costs. The Hammer of Eternity, an elite armada composed of the Dominion's most advanced warships, was dispatched to crush Earth and the budding rebellion. The Hammer of Eternity was commanded by Admiral Exelith, a ruthless tactician renowned for his ability to dismantle opposition with precision and efficiency. Selith viewed humanity as an infestation, a threat to be eradicated swiftly and brutally. "They've tasted victory," Selith sneered during a briefing aboard his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. "Let us remind them why resistance is futile." The fleet's path toward Earth was marked by devastation. Neutral trade stations were destroyed, and any ship that carried messages of rebellion was annihilated. The Dominion sought to send a message. Resistance meant extinction. Humanity's preparation. On Earth, the Sentinel Corps monitored the approach of the Hammer of Eternity. The data was grim. Hundreds of warships, each bristling with weapons more advanced than anything humanity had seen. The question was not whether the Dominion would attack, but when. General Royce convened the United Earth Command. "We have two choices," she began. "Wait for them to come to us or intercept them before they reach our home." Captain Vargas of the ESS Valkyrie stood, his expression resolute. "If we let them reach Earth, we'll lose our greatest advantage, the element of surprise. We need to strike first, disrupt their formation, and force them into a fight on our terms." Dr. Torvik proposed a bold strategy. The Dominion's ships rely heavily on centralized control. If we can infiltrate their command network and disable their fleet-wide synchronization, we'll reduce their effectiveness. "Sounds impossible," Lieutenant Koenig said, raising an eyebrow. Torvik smirked. "Not impossible, just difficult. We've already deciphered part of their communication protocols. All we need is a diversion to get close enough to deploy the virus." The decisive battle. The human fleet, led by the ESS Valkyrie, launched from a hidden lunar base. This time, the fleet included ships from newly allied civilizations, Scythari frigates with their organic hulls, Braxian cruisers armed with plasma cannons, and more. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. The two forces met in the empty void between star systems. The Hammer of Eternity loomed, its ships arranged in an intimidating wall of firepower. Admiral Xalith's voice echoed across the comm channels. "Humans, surrender now, and I may show mercy to your species." Captain Vargas replied calmly, "We've seen your mercy. We'll take our chances." The battle erupted. Fighters swarmed like locusts, missiles streaked across the void, and beams of energy lit up the darkness. The Allied fleet fought with desperation, their smaller numbers offset by ingenuity and coordination. Lieutenant Koenig and the Storm Riders wove through the chaos, targeting critical weak points on Dominion ships. "Focus on their engines," Koenig ordered. "They're nothing without their mobility." The infiltration. As the battle raged, a stealth team led by Captain Vargas and Dr. Torvik infiltrated the Dominion's flagship, Dominion's Wrath, using a cloaked shuttle. Their mission: to deploy the virus that would cripple the Dominion fleet. Navigating the labyrinthine halls of the ship, they encountered fierce resistance. Vargas's tactical prowess and Torvik's technical expertise proved invaluable as they pushed toward the ship's core. "Keep them off me," Torvik shouted as she worked to upload the virus. "Just a little longer," Vargas barked, firing at advancing Dominion soldiers. Finally, the virus uploaded. Across the Dominion fleet, systems began to falter. Weapons misfired, shields flickered, and ships collided in the confusion. Victory and sacrifice. With the Dominion fleet in disarray, the Allied forces pressed their advantage. The ESS Valkyrie delivered a devastating strike to the Dominion's Wrath, sending the ship into a fiery spiral. Admiral Xelith, consumed by his own hubris, perished aboard his flagship. The remnants of the Hammer of Eternity retreated, their cohesion shattered. Humanity and its allies had won a decisive victory, but at great cost. Many ships were lost, and countless lives were sacrificed. Back on Earth, a subdued celebration marked the victory. General Royce addressed the world, her voice heavy with both sorrow and determination. "We have dealt the Dominion a critical blow, but the fight is far from over. We must honor the fallen by ensuring their sacrifice was not in vain." As the fleet returned, battered but triumphant, one truth became clear. Humanity had become more than a symbol of resistance. They were now the vanguard of a galaxy-wide revolution, and the Dominion, once thought invincible, had begun to crack under the weight of its arrogance.